In today's episode, we talk to somebody who wants to build a stronger, smarter, and more profitable roofing business. I'm John DeLaurier, former roofing company owner and co-founder of ProLine CRM. In this episode, we sit down and talk to Adam Nussbaum of Nussbaum Roofing. We start by unpacking the nightmare of rebranding. I know, I did it myself. Nightmare of rebranding a business due to conflicting issues in the community. It's a painful but necessary transition that highlights the importance of protecting your brand early on. Adam shares his fascinating background in IT and working on federal agricultural labs, which shaped his unique perspective on efficiency from running lean. We explore his transition from complex world of interior restoration, where you act as a labor broker, to the streamlined, repeatable profitability of roofing and exteriors. Adam also gets real about accounting, explains why business owners need to focus on raising your lows by cutting expenses that don't bring returns. It's to do this rather than just chasing higher revenue. Finally, we tackle a controversial topic of insurance adjustments. Adam advocates for integrity, explaining why he refuses to chalk roofs to mimic damage and how honest assessments actually build stronger, long-term relationships with insurance agents and homeowners. Let's get into it. The year went pretty good for you guys.
Yeah, so we're kind of in a transition right now. I had a business partner for a number of years, and we separated in 24. And so I rebranded my business, and then actually rebranded again at the end of this year. So I've been in a constant state of transition. But all in all, things have went really well.
Good. So is Able Roofing now? Is that the correct name of it now?
So I actually I had a competitor. I found a competitor in my market with the same name. And then at first I thought that it really wouldn't matter. We kind of barely overlapped, but as time went on, we more and more things were getting conflicted. And so I just said, well, I've only been doing this a year. I'm going to switch this off and go back to a different business name. And I changed it to Nussbaum Roofing, which is my last name. So I've been rebranding that right now. And, so I've been in a flux for like a year and a half now. And, but it's finally, that's starting to fall off, and I'm starting to get some traction with my new brand. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
There's a lot of moving parts with that. I feel your pain with the transition, because when I went from DeLaurier Roofing, it was a whole long thing. This is all done and over with now. But I went with DeLaurier Roofing. We changed to Peach State Roofing. Well, Peach State Roofing is used with one other company that's a commercial company that wasn't showing up. They didn't own an LLC. They didn't own the trademark. Word to the wise, understand your state's trademark laws, because that was a nightmare for us. So we were non-competing geographically, non-competing with services, and they still filed suit against us. It was a very crazy thing.
Yeah.
So then we changed to Peach Roofing. They still kept going after us. It was a crazy thing. So if you're looking to rebrand, know that make sure you have a trademark, or at least understand potential pitfalls, because what you're saying is like, you will conflict, especially online. You will conflict.
Yeah. And I had done the research with the state and knew there was another company with a similar name. But he didn't have an online presence. So I couldn't tell where he was. He was registered with an agent, but it wasn't around here. And then I couldn't figure out where he was. He didn't have any advertisement, didn't have a website, didn't have any social media marketing. There was just, when even his Google listing didn't have an address. We're in Illinois, so, the vast amount of population in the state is up in Chicago. So whenever you're not familiar with somebody, you just think, oh, they must be in the Chicago area. They're out of my market. It's not a problem. And then just getting into it, I talked to customers and they'd say, oh, I think you did somebody's roof right over here. And I'd have no recollection of that. And then one time, one of our vendors payment I made went onto his account, and it just started getting really weird. And I just thought, this is going to get worse. The bigger I get in this market and the more my name gets known, this is going to be a bigger issue. And eventually he's going to start getting work from my efforts. I thought, just before I get too deep into this, I just need to change this. So I have. Yep.
Yeah, it definitely hurt us too, because the similar kind of things happened. Vendor confusion. Even though we weren't buying from the same vendors, like regionally, they would get confused. And then also, they were getting so many of our leads, like, because we were really pushing marketing. And so they would constantly get phone calls for our residential stuff.
Yeah.
And, it sucked because they did zero residential, and they had no like idea or any kind of, interest in like partnering, because we would get commercial leads. We would just send them to them. We did. And they were like, nah, we're not going to send you the residential stuff. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So then, anyway, shout out to Peach State Roofing. You guys are a-holes. You guys are. One day.
Yeah.
It sucked.
I get it.
Because then you got to change. I mean, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars at that point of like vehicle wraps and online. All the online stuff was different. It was a lot of work, a lot of SEO work, a lot of organic search stuff that we worked really hard on for a long time. DeLaurier is a hard word to say, and it's a hard word to spell. At least Nussbaum, you can kind of get close. DeLaurier, you can't really get close.
I've a couple of different people that I've brought your name up to in reference. They correct me. They're like, you're saying his name wrong. That's not how you say it. I'm like, I don't know.
I'm not even saying it right. For real, like it's a French Canadian word, last name. It's kind of popular actually. And I don't even say it right, but
I don't either. So coincidentally, there's I have some distant cousins, and they have a business over in a couple cities over. And when people they ask me, do you know so and so? They'll say Nussbaum. And I always was raised to say Nussbaum. And I met a lady once from Germany, a customer of mine actually, and I introduced myself and I said my last name. She said, you know that's not how you say your last name. She said it's Nussbaum. So, at any rate, I just go with what I know. So
yeah. All you can do. It's
Yeah.
a lesson in branding. It's a lesson in. I think it's kind of leading me to the fact, like, I obviously if I go back and do it, I would have done more legal. I mean, I did a lot of research before I did the brand change, because I knew it was a big deal. I did about 3 months of research to make sure that it has all made sense.
Yeah.
And it still wasn't, I really, the only person I didn't call is a trademark attorney that understood trademark law. I think a lot of this private equity that's coming in the entire industry, I think that like it's going to kind of revert back to a family name. I think you're going to get a lot of business because a lot of the customer base is not going to want, like, I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, but like very common used names that are very corporate type names. Not that they're bad, but it's very clear they're corporate, that private equity is like taking over. And if you have a family name, it's unlikely that, not to say it's not, because there are family name companies that have taken on private equity money and it's been fine. It's been good.
Sure.
But I do think the family name thing is going to actually, you're going to have a somewhat of an advantage as we move forward with private equity taking over the industry.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I've always been told or read that, if you give a business a family name, it's harder to sell. And on the surface, it's a bit of a platitude. It's on the surface, like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But after a while, it doesn't. Like, the brand isn't, a family. It's now a family name. You associate, how you build a business creates the brand. And when people buy businesses, they're buying the brand. If you just look back at a lot of different corporations that have people's names, I mean, Ford, Firestone, all of them, like, you don't think of that family. You think of what's synonymous, the brand that comes with that name.
Yep.
So it's more important how you build the brand.
Yep. The processes that that you would develop, the culture for sales, like sales culture is a huge thing. And how nice are your sales reps? How professional are they? Like there's a couple different like family name roofing companies that are humongous in the Southeast and in Atlanta. And they're not owned by the family anymore, but they're run with the same culture. They're very well run. They're very well respected. No one even thinks twice that it's a different family running it now. Like it's
Sure.
it's what you said is true. It's like you just got to build the right processes and obviously people a lot of times it's SOPs and it's accounting. Like those are the two big things that people don't understand, like are very important to if you want to sell your business. Like it's
Yeah.
super, super important.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and I mean, just on accounting, I think it's probably one of the biggest issues with anybody running a company is they don't understand accounting. They've never, they've learned the business just based off of maybe other business they've been involved in. They went out and started their own business, but they don't really have the education background in accounting or, finance or how money really works. And, you know, to that point, there's a guy who's a soccer player, I think he developed like a principle, I think it's called the maximum principle or something like that. And it has to do with like, um, it's a big concept and it's got to do with, like getting rid of expenses that don't bring you returns essentially. So like raising your lows, not always just trying to raise your highs, but actually raising your lows, like cutting off expenses, and things that you can go out and I talk to guys all the time. They're saying, oh, we had a really good year this year. We did X million dollars, et cetera. But I don't know how much money do they have? Like what was your result of that? That's more important. And they don't have a grip on that because they don't understand accounting.
yeah. And construction accounting is very different than most other businesses in general.
Sure.
But roofing, I feel like the culture is changing in a good way, but a lot of guys who've been in the industry for a long time accept kind of these lower margin, just this is what it is. This is the competition. Everybody's racing to the bottom as far as profit goes. And it is a vast majority of people like I did X million, and just what you said is true. They have no money. They're like they owe suppliers. They have all these truck payments. They have all this overhead, and they're not really understanding direct costs, indirect costs, like how overhead works. And a lot of people are throwing money at marketing and marketing agencies, and you can have the best marketing agency in the world, but if you don't understand how to acquire a customer, you don't understand how to generate new leads coming in, it's not, you got to learn those things. The sales, what I see is either sales or production. Really good sales reps start a new business, or really good installers start a new business, and they think one of those things is going to like solve the world. In reality, there's 5 things. There's accounting, administration, marketing, sales, and then production. And it's almost in that order because people don't realize how important the accounting side is. They want to do that at the end. That's the end. I don't want to do numbers. But really, if you understand your numbers, you can be transparent with your team, and then you can have confidence with your team to sell at a certain profit margin. And this is the reason it costs this much money. Not like we're making 45% profit or whatever the number is. They won't think it's crazy because they understand the transparency behind business. That's a
Right.
huge thing that helped me at least
Yeah.
understand. Because people would be like, how are you? You're making so much money is what they would say. Like, I'm not making, like, you're making $10,000 off this roof. Come on. I have failed as a leader if you think and you say that I'm making $10,000 on this roof. It's a very, very important thing to learn the accounting side of things.
Yeah. It is a lot of transparency costs, like you said, a lot of overhead. You know, you understand your indirect costs, your direct costs. That thing. I mean, that's a little bit where like my background getting into kind of roofing or just construction business altogether was always been strong. And I've always kind of handled that aspect of my company. The parts where I have to grow in are the sales, part of it. Like I do sales now. I haven't had any training. I've never really researched, experienced or whatever, but I still do really well at it. And I think it's just because I connect well with people. And so there's a little bit of it's a lot more just kind of natural sales stuff that I do. I just find common bond with people, try to figure out, ways to make it equitable for both of us. I just do really well at it from that standpoint. But I don't know the rest of that's a part where I need to grow. I know I need to grow in this upcoming year or probably even sooner. Really focus on my time on too.
Here's how roofers make it home for dinner every single night without losing a single sale, even when they're one-man shows. Automate your communication with ProLine, the only communication-first CRM for roofers. Because when you fix your communication, you'll sell more jobs. Your weekends will smell more like sunscreen and backyard barbecues than that crappy gas station coffee. And all you got to do is ask these roofers.
Where we had about 200% growth, and I attribute that to incorporating ProLine.
But just with one automation, I was able to get 25 Google reviews.
It's been absolutely insane how quickly we were able to grow.
Now, ProLine's not going to win the beauty pageant, but it will save your Saturday. Now, back to the show.
What is your background? Well, you talked about it. You mentioned it. What's your professional background?
Actually, my background was in IT. I got out of high school. I actually worked construction a little bit, and then I went in I went in the Air Force. But before I went in the Air Force, I worked at this agriculture lab in Peoria, and this agriculture lab was a federal lab, and they would put equipment down on this table in the basement. It was called a surplus table. And there was a rule that you couldn't throw any of this stuff away. You have to put it on the table for 30 days. And if nobody took it after 30 days, they could throw it away. Okay. It was part of the laws of, just federal funding, et cetera. And so I worked down in the basement in this chemical storeroom. And when I'd have downtime, I would go out and look at all this equipment. I was just, enamored by it all. And I started taking computers. This was in the mid to late 90s, where tech was really of high interest to everyone. And so I started taking computers apart and researching. I would go to the library at the local university and look up what these parts were, what they meant. Started piecing all these things together, and I started building computers in the back of the storeroom. And I would use them what we were doing. We didn't really use any computers down there. And then we got an inventory system that we put on there and an ordering system. And just through my own curiosity, I was building, I was understanding how computers worked, how inventory worked, how software worked, all these things. And in fact, once so then I joined the Air National Guard. I started studying computers in the Air National Guard. And then in my civilian job back at the Ag Lab, they actually offered me a job in IT, which I just didn't. I was never focusing on that result. I was just focusing on my curiosity, and ended up making a career out of it. So I moved around in IT for a number of years, and then you get to a point where you start realizing that tech, the tech industry isn't just about tech; it's about business as well. So my curiosity took me towards business, and I started learning more and more stuff about just the business end of technology. And then around, I think 2008, when the crash came, I went back to the same customers that I had sold software and hardware to for years and did the opposite. I went in and showed them how to be more efficient with technology, get rid of the technologies that don't really make them any money, things that were just kind of trivial, get rid of those, be more lean. You only use this because this is what you're really getting production stuff out of. And that became like, again, it's just a natural curiosity because I just always wanted to run lean, be profitable. Don't do anything for the sake of just doing it. What's the result? What is the result? And so, then I lost my job like everybody did then. And like I said, I went back to some of these same customers and, started selling them on these processes. And then I started kind of mentoring some small businesses. And it was a great opportunity to do it because everybody was trying to figure out how to get rid of expenses. So, then a guy I knew that had been in business, but he was having trouble financially. We partnered up and we got into the restoration business. We started doing fire damage, water damage, fire damage, storm damage, things like that. Well, that ended up having a natural evolution into doing exteriors as well, because we would go to insurance agents and adjusters with, we provide these water damage services, fire damage services. And once you get a relationship built with them based off of they are somebody that they could call and trust to get things done and take care of their customers, once storms started to come around, they started to send customers our way for storms. So we didn't do roofing exterior stuff. We were all interior stuff at that point. And it's kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but it's important. So what we realized is, we're doing, interior remodel work or damage restoration work. It takes months to do. It's a lot of planning. First, you have to tear everything down, get it back to square, go back to the insurance company, work with the insurance company and try to settle on a agreed scope of work for a certain dollar amount. Then you go through the whole process of, picking out things in the house, organizing all these different subcontractors. And I started calling it, we weren't really general contractors. I thought we were labor brokers. We were matching up customers with vetted subcontractors and making a margin on it. But that process was really long, and it's a lot of room for error, a lot of indecision, a lot of overhead involved in it. And we started to get a taste of the exterior work. We realized this is so much easier, right? Like the questions in roofing is, what color do you want? Not all these different things. So, you just put shingles on a roof and repeat. And, you start to reduce all your overhead there. You can make the same amount of money in days. You can make in 6 weeks, interior work. And just started really focusing on that and kind of where we went. And then coincidentally, with the blessings from God, we had a couple of hailstorms, which are nice also. We crossed what we knew in insurance related work with this exterior work that we were doing and became experts at it. So that's kind of where I got where I'm at now.
I love it. That's a very common, very good story though. Very, very cool about the ag, like the ag table part and then the IT part. That was very, very cool. I've just been having conversations for years, but recently one of my friends, he has a deck business. He's actually one of the ProLine. He's one of our ProLine customers. And he got his, in Georgia, almost no one gets a license for anything. Any specialty contractor doesn't have a license. It's very frustrating, honestly. But to do anything like with decks and structural, you got to get a general contractor's license. Well, he just passed his test, and I was talking to him about what he's going to do. And I started DeLaurier Roofing and Renovation. In fact, one of my original hats is right here. Like this is like a 10-year-old hat, and we would do these, like expensive remodeling jobs. They could be they're mostly high end, like lake houses or like high end neighborhoods, and they'd be very, very expensive. This is 10 years ago, and you look at that, you're like, this is great. the homeowner thinks you're making a bunch of money. You think you're going to make a bunch of money, but it's all those things you just said. It's time. It's the number one. It's decisions. There's a lot of opportunity for failure that can ruin the profit for the entire job. Different organization structures for different subcontractors, bunch of different trades. And it's just become very clear to me over the past several years. And that only took me about 2 years to switch to just roofing and exteriors. And we were doing, at one point, we were even doing full siding jobs, and we were doing painting, and even that was like an extra thing. And some people can make it work, but where we're at, you should just be a siding guy, and you should just be a painting guy. And we were selling windows and doors, and that's a whole nother thing is in itself. Like, so at the end of the last several years of our business before I sold it, we were just roofing, and we didn't even talk about gutters. We did gutters, but we would do roofing and gutters, and that's it. We would do 75% shingles, and then we did standing seam as well, metal. So to your point, simple, straightforward, way easier, way better, less decisions. Doing $100,000 roofing versus $100,000 of remodeling is night and day for profit, for like not just the money part. So if you're a homeowner, just know that your contractor's not making very much money on a $100,000 remodeling job. They're just not. They're not, after taxes and insurance are paid, they're not making very much money. Roofing is less. The difference between roofing, we had retail, so we didn't have a bunch of storms. So you're doing your roof once or twice in your entire lifetime. And so you need to do it right. And so it needs to be done really well, and you should pay a premium for that. That was our whole business model. And for contractors, the same thing, whether you're retail or insurance. Niche down, like get down to like a few things you're really experts on, like you said.
Yeah.
Be an expert on that thing. If it's painting, great. If it's decks, great. If it's whatever it is, be an expert on that thing. And our goal was everything was a 1-day job. If it was a 2-day job, fine. If it was going to be a 3-day job, we would really not want to do it.
Yeah.
Because we know how it works. Like the opportunity for failure, homeowners are standing around. They don't want you to be there. And that's roofing. Like, that's not even like a crazy, kitchen remodel where people live. Like, it's a completely different experience. So I love that story that thanks for sharing it. I think it's just a good example of like, I've heard that story so many times. Not the cool IT and ag part, but like we did all the things and then we got closer to a few different trades and we just did a lot better. So thanks for sharing that. I think people need to hear that, actually.
I think that a lot of times, the work required to become like an expert at something, it's like the Pareto rule, right? And you're going to get, your 80% of you're going to get 80% of result by 20% of your work.
Yep.
And what happens is, people we call that the law of the last mile. So, it's come from the phone companies where they used to run wire. It's really easy to dig the trenches and run the wire just out in the middle of nowhere for miles and miles and miles. And then you get to the house, and you have to find the demarcation and, put the systems in place. And it's all the tedious work. And what happens is when people get up against that tedious work, they say, maybe we should put up we should do fencing. Maybe we should do decking, because they want to get that 80, they want to get the 80% again. And they never get really good at one thing. And just, early on, I wish I could find this. I've looked at it online before. This brilliant guy, I think it was a TED Talk or something. And he was talking about just, not scaling anything until you can work a concept from A to Z. When I used to work for a project management company, I was the IT director for this project management company, and they had a methodology. They all do, but this was called duration driven. And, they would do this Socratic method with the people that they were doing the projects for. And they would say, okay, give me all the deliverables. And they would write all the deliverables and tasks up on a wall. And they said, okay, in a way, the way they would challenge people would say, okay, if I do all these things in this order, will we get the result of what you guys do on a daily basis? And they go, oh, there's something missing there, there's something missing there, right? And so they would figure out how to do all those things first, and then when they would draw a path down the middle of it called the critical path. And so that was the working concept. And you didn't branch out from that until you got that 100% complete. And when that was repeatable, I'm sure I'm mixing all kinds of systems together here, but once that was repeatable, then you could test the water for something else. But until that, it was all those items were fully met. The critical path was on pace. You could repeat it over and over and over. Then you didn't mess with that concept until you do that. I think a lot of people, I know a lot of businesses don't do that. They get fatigued from it. And then they try to venture into something else, and you're just going to keep chasing your tail and realize down the road, the only thing you've gotten is older and you've got less time, now.
Yep.
And you just ran away from it.
You're making a great point that a lot of people, again, sales or production, those are the two main types of people that start in the roofing space, at least.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to do the process things. I don't. I'm not good at them. I'm not like a detail-oriented person, but you got to do those things. We talk in my family, I tell my boys all the time and my daughter, we do hard things. And that's a hard thing. That's working harder. It's not sweating on a roof. It's not, dealing with hard customers. It's creating those processes that are repeatable. They're very hard to do. People talking about like scaling and like systematized. It's very hard for a lot of people because the personality type does not match the action. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
But it is the most magical thing when you can actually do it. Like, it was amazing, especially for me, because I was like, and people like me, like, I'm not used to seeing a process being created and then repeated. Like, that's not in my wheelhouse of strength. So when I was doing it for years and years and years, the more I did it, the better I got, obviously. But we all need to, it's the most magical thing. A small business that creates those SOPs, that creates all those systems the way they're supposed to be, that's amazing. Because people, it's not just about necessarily just about making more money. It's about, what I was always driven is by the team. The team had a good day because they weren't confused. There was clarity with whatever they're supposed to do that day. Mm-hmm. If they're going through our process. Mm-hmm. Like, that was a huge thing for me because people had better experiences working with me. Like, that was what I wanted. And that's what I think we should all want. We should all want, not just, I want to make more money. Of course, we want to be more profitable. But if you can make each team member on your team have better days and weeks and months, and quarters and years, then you'll win. Everyone, your customers will win.
Yeah. I mean, that goes back to raising your lows, right? It's not always about raising your highs, it's about raising your lows. Like, the particular things that in your business that you don't want to do. Like Tim Ferriss, I'm sure you know Tim Ferriss is, he used to do this. He used to do this little tidbit thing, and you pop on the internet at odd times, whatever, and he gave us a little bit of advice here and there. One time he said that of all the things he had to do in a day, so in the morning, what he would do is he had this huge list of things he needed to do. And then he would take like just a Post-it, and he would write down, he would go through there and go, okay, what are the hardest things? What are the things I don't want to do on this list? And he would put it on this Post-it note. So you kind of divide and conquer. And then he would do those things, fill in those little gaps that are what's bringing you down. And it's like, I remember like my fourth grade teacher one time drew on a blackboard, I'm that age, we still had chalk, but she would talk about missing, how important it was to not miss an assignment. Like, even turning in an assignment that's half done is way more important, valuable than not turning in anything. And she'd show, you could score 100% on 5 different tests, and that 5 different assignments. And then that 6th assignment you didn't turn in would drop your average so low that you would be at a point of failure. That's the same thing in business. Like, your profit margin is only whatever it is. It's not extremely high. It's going to be somewhere below 50% in any given business, maybe not software, but any given business. And if you can figure, if you're failing in one particular spot, you can drop that down to a point where it's just not, you can't survive. And so you have to go fill those gaps, raise your lows up. And that might be finally sitting down and going, I'm going to lose a week's worth of revenue, but I'm also going to sit down and write down what these processes and procedures are that continue to be a cancer in my business. It's really hard to do.
That is a phenomenal point. That's a phenomenal, because I hear over and over again, as I've done a little bit of coaching, like, I don't have time. I'm like, you don't understand how important this is then. I'm not instilling to you what you just said, which is it's important to stop everything so you can start these processes, because you're just going to keep failing the same way if you don't fix those things.
Yeah.
And it was usually, I didn't have in the beginning, we didn't have anything. It was one of those classic stores where people owed me money and I had to start a business. And so I was negative bank account. So I didn't have the ability to stop. But what I did was I'd work on the weekends and I'd listen to podcasts and I would read books, and then I would actually learn those things and then do those things. Like, that's the part I was a terrible student in school. I don't like to do that. And so I had to tap into the ability of, like, I got to survive and I got to do it smarter. And I think a lot of people in home services in general, they're like us. They weren't great students, and they don't want to read books, and they don't want to listen, and they go to the conferences and they don't write. I mean, the number of these little books I have that I've written in, I want to actually do the things that I learned. And that's what I definitely credit stealing the smartest ideas from smart. You've mentioned lots of people that are way smarter than me today. And it's like, yeah, they're smarter. Don't just listen to them. Do the things that they're saying.
Do it.
And you'll be fine. Like, you will succeed if you do those things. It is wild to me, the number of people that won't do what you just said. Like, it's like, guys, it is. I went to University of Georgia, and I probably shouldn't have gone. I shouldn't have gone. I mean, I should just, because I had a landscape business. I was working 3 jobs when I was there. I just wanted to make money. I didn't connect the dots, and it didn't really benefit me financially. It just cost money. So this is the education. Doing the things. We have so many resources now with technology. We have YouTube, we have all these people, and it is hard to filter who's telling the truth and who's selling you a course and all those things. But it's just like going to school, university. You just do that. Just learn business that way. I know lots of people with MBAs that don't know business at all. Like that at all. And they're like, I'm trying to convince my friend right now to not go get their master's. I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, tell me. Why are you doing it? Because you want to feel good and have a piece of paper? It's like, it's not connecting. Business is straightforward. It is simple. It is not easy. You have to learn these things and do these things.
Yeah. I say that business is complex, but it's not complicated. There's a lot of different ways to go do it. But they all kind of, to make it successful, it's not that complicated to do it. There's a little bit of not a little bit. There's a problem today where there's too much information. Within a year or two, the same guys that are out there right now claiming to be experts in things, and their sound bites and their platitudes sound great. Like, I'm guilty of it too. I've, been on social media and thought, oh, I'm going to bookmark this guy's phrase or statement or whatever, and then go back, and I'll never go back and look at those bookmarks. There's just so much of them, Yeah. And so what I started to do is realize that I'm going to be just paralyzed with all these options unless I just pick one and do it. And so that's got to do with just not being afraid to fail. Like, there's a great book out there right now. And so real quick, I was a terrible student too. I'm terrible at remembering titles, things like that. I gather concepts and I can apply those concepts really well, but I just, the details of titles and the names of songs or movies, I can never remember any of them.
Same.
But, there's a book, and I think it's like The Psychology of Money or something like that. And
I think that's it.
Yeah. I've been listening to. I don't read them, but I listen to them when I'm driving a lot of the times. And one thing in there, one concept that talked about like taking risks. That's not a whole statement. It's the start of a statement, but it's not the whole statement. So it's not the advice you want to go out and just take a risk and be afraid to fail and just completely collapse your family, et cetera. I mean, when you're young, you don't have much to lose, right? But as you get older and you get a family and a house and everything, assets, whatever, more people are relying on you. You can't just go out and risk it all the time. But he talks about, in that book, he talks about failing to a point where it won't ruin you. And I'm not much of a gambler. I'm a calculated risk guy, but I'm not much of a gambler. But now I've been to Vegas multiple times and I've watched a lot of people gamble and I don't dislike it. But I don't particularly like to gamble with my money. So what me and my friends would do, we would go to a casino that was the cheapest place to bet. And I would take a certain amount of money and put it in my left pocket, and I put a certain amount of money in my right pocket. And it goes back to what this book is saying is the money that was in my left pocket was the money that I needed to enjoy the rest of my trip with. Okay. And then the money in my right pocket is what I could stand to lose today and it wouldn't ruin me. And that's kind of like, I've always approached it that way. And so when I saw it in that book, I was like, I've been doing this all along. And this is great advice. Like you should be taking risks, but not up to a point where it ruin you. And so you just have to decide what is running you, like what would run you, like not to a point where you lose all your money up to the point where you can just almost pay your mortgage. I mean, that's just up to you. But, you know, take some risks, choose something. You know, you have to take a bunch of different options, choose a couple of them, and then narrow it down and say, I'm going to do this one. You know, there's a concept out there that I do now, and I do it in my estimating also, is I give 2 options, not 3. You know, I know there's good, better, best. I don't do that. I only do 2. I don't want to give a bunch of options. I want to give 2 options. And, you know, it's a lot easier for people to make decisions than just 2 options. So like for me, that's how I do things. Like when I want to make a decision, okay, I need to start working towards this, you know, who do I follow in sales? Pick 2 guys, go through their processes, see which one you like more, and then choose that one and do it. And then figure out what doesn't work or what is working, repeat what does work, what doesn't work, try to figure out how to fill that void. So again, business is complex, but it's not complicated.
Yep. Very true. I keep thinking about the chalk on the chalkboard because I can't stand people doing chalk. I think it's crazy. In 2025, we're still writing chalk on asphalt shingles. I think it's it's crazy. Like we have drones that can literally see the damage. It's all just a game now. Like this piece of chalk is actually taking the granules off of the shingles as we're drawing on. Like it's a crazy thing for me. Do you guys do that a bunch in Chicago?
Well, I'm outside of Chicago, but I don't no. So 2 things. One is, you know, I have seen people start to use like some kind of different marking pens and things like that. I take a lot of pictures. I don't really, you know, I don't mind sliding chalk over gutters to show dimples and stuff like that. But I don't mark up a lot of roofs with chalk. It's either there or it isn't. And I'm not, again, I think that the way I do business, real quick side note, when I was doing water damage restoration, I went to a training. It was called, again, I can't remember titles, but it was something like Skills for Success or something like that. And there was a guy that put on the training. It was awesome. And one thing I learned from him was that businesses are like fish. They rot from the head down. And, you know, any business that you think has something something that rubs you wrong, right? It's because the guy at the top allows that.
Yep.
You know, his behaviors as a person is how the business is going to run. And so I'm not a giant storm chasing guy. I'm not knocking anybody for the way they do business. They do it however you want to do it. But, you know, I've got off a lot of roofs and told people your roof is fine. Do not make a claim. Only to have them a week later call me and say, hey, everybody else is getting a roof. I got nervous about it. And Adam, will you do my roof? Well, at that point, like, I'll do your roof every Wednesday. If you choose, that's how you want to do it. But I advised you the best I could. I didn't think it was worth it. I don't think it's good to have a claim on your history. I'm not that guy. I'm not going to get up there. And I also don't argue with adjusters. I don't get up on roofs and fight with adjusters and try to exhaust them and fatigue them. I'm up there to be a partner to them, point out some things, ask them some questions, calibrate where their mind is, how they look at damage and stuff like that, and understand like what it is that they're looking for. I'm glad to help point out, oh, did you see this? How do you kind of look at this? How do you perceive this? Is this damage? That kind of thing. And I think if you give people a fair, set of expectations when you get up there with them, they'll be fair in the end. I mean, do I see it sometimes? I've been in hailstorms before where there is a set of adjusters out there and they were riding roofs or buying roofs all day long. And then a week later, all those guys were gone. All these new adjusters came in and it was no to everything.
Yeah.
And that probably wasn't quite right either. But yeah, as far as getting up on roofs and chalking roofs, I've done it, but only because I was mimicking what everybody else was doing until I said, okay, now I kind of understand what we're up here to do. Maybe this isn't the best approach.
Yeah. It's crazy when you just, you're honest and you do the right thing. Usually good things happen. I would get on roofs. I would take a bunch of pictures. I would send, like, it'd be an insurance agent would send us over there. And I would be on the roof, freaking 12, 3 stories up. And I would call the agent and be like, there's no damage on here. I'm sending you the pictures right now. If they file a claim, just know these are time-stamped photos.
Yeah.
Something else is happening.
Yeah.
And I would do that for years. And there's this is back when State Farm was actually pretty good. There's 2 ladies who weren't allowed by State Farm. They're employees of State Farm they were not allowed to climb on anything steeper than a 612. So they would just give me their camera and I'd have to draw. They're like, you have to draw chalk in a 10 by 10. And so I would do it. And a lot of times like, hey, this is nothing. Do you want me to damage the shingles with this chalk? And they're like, thank you for being honest. And so they would this whole neighborhood, I remember this whole neighborhood. It was it wasn't that big. There's probably 75 homes in it. They would just call me. They would just text me like, hey, can you come climb this roof? And sometimes I'd just fly drones, but a lot of times I'd climb these steep roofs and draw. And if you're honest about it, all those insurance agents and the adjusters will refer you. Like, it's just, it drives me crazy that the industry and homeowners would drive. There's a very famous competitor of ours that's going viral right now on Facebook with a video of him damaging shingles, and we lose jobs to him all the time. And I was like, I would tell the homeowner, like, don't file a claim, just like what you just said. I'd get on the roof, don't file a claim, because I was an insurance agent and I knew that the clue report is going to follow you everywhere. Yeah, like, I don't care if you switch carriers, you're going to have you call the adjuster out, that's a claim. What? Yeah, you call the adjuster out, give him a claim number, get $0, it's still a claim.
Yep.
And as an agent, our automated system would cancel people if they had a claim every year for I don't know the number, 5 years or 4 years, and they would be $0. They would just cancel you because you're a high risk. You're just fishing
high risk.
Yeah, you're fishing for claims.
Yep.
And there's no valid reason. So I would always educate our homeowners on that, and they would not file the claim. And then some competitors would come, and then magically these shingles with no other storm, no rain after we got there would be like, oh, they're damaged now.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Like, it's a crazy, I wish that there was more enforcement of that kind of thing. We don't need to chalk roofs. Just take really good pictures. We have millions of drones now that can take 8K quality pictures of shingles.
Right.
No guessing. You're not guessing now.
Yeah.
Like you can see the granules. Anyway, that's my soapbox on insurance restoration. Most areas, it's just like fraud in the adjusters, the roofers, or the homeowners. There's some version of dishonesty of level.
Yeah. I mean, there's been obviously been an exploitation of maybe I'm choosing my words here, but there's been an exploitation and maybe like a failure in how insurance companies, and I don't know, I'm just speaking, or just talking, but insurance companies, they make money off premiums, right? And so, they would say, okay, we don't scrutinize a whole lot. Okay, we just can get the premiums in, right? And so, the actuators would look at, how big is this house? How risky are these people, et cetera, et cetera. Let's, here's your policy. Let's get some premiums in. And what they failed to do is look at the roofs, right? And like, they're always writing this, okay, let's do the math here. Where's our exposure? What's what's the loss potential here? Let's insure these homes. And so, when it got exploited that, people have 20-year-old roofs that were only worth, $1,000 as they sit, but now the insurance companies have this exposure to replace these roofs for 20 grand. They were way over insuring something that was of no value. So there was an exploitation there, but now insurance companies aren't done. Like, they have huge legal departments. They have huge, mathematical departments, et cetera. And now they're coming back and they're putting ACV policies on roofs. And they're I'm getting calls all the time now from people saying, my insurance policy is up, and now the insurance company wants me to have a roofer come out and say whether or not this roof is viable. Does it have, how many more years does it have left in it, et cetera? Where I never saw that,
No.
up until recently. So that's kind of shifting, and, there's a lot of opportunistic people out there that, saw that market opportunity, jumped on that exploitation or that vulnerability in the market, got a ton of money for doing it, and now we're all going to pay for it.
Yep.
Because insurance companies aren't. They're going to figure out how to be profitable again, and once everybody kind of jumps on it, then you don't have any other choice but to go with that company that's doing that. So, it just kind of is what it is. But I didn't want to be a part of it.
No. I'm just now, I mean, I never was part of Fortified Roofing, but Fortified Roofing is kind of going around Louisiana and now Georgia, but it's just an extra, I won't get into it because I wasn't a Fortified Roofer, but it's a pretty sweet thing to do to kind of guarantee that the roof is built correctly, and there's a lot of inspections, and it takes a longer process. It usually takes about twice as long to build the roof because you got to either, I forgot the stipulations for the decking. I think you got to tape every seam in the deck. You got to nail all the deck boards, and there's just a bunch of extra things you got to do.
Yeah.
And it's making it hard for roofers to be more profitable, but the insurance companies are winning because they're like, they can actually insure, to your point, they can insure the home correctly. And it drives me crazy that states like Georgia, there's lots of states with no license and no permits. So if you can track a permit for a roof, you know roughly how old the roof is. Well, in Georgia, you have no idea. You have no idea how old the roof is. And if you want to make it a 10-year and then you can depreciate, you can start doing, whatever you want to do with the policies after 10 years or 15 years, whatever it is, that's fine. But you'd have no idea in states with no permits how old the roof is. Mm-hmm. So your point is very smart because insurance companies are not going to lose money. They're going to figure out a way to protect themselves, and the actuaries are going to be like, hey, how old is the roof? That's the majority of claims are roofs. Why don't we know the age of the roof?
Right.
We should know that.
Right. Right. Well, and they are starting to track it. I mean, a lot of, I'll get people. So there's a bit of I'm always looking for the, what's the trick here kind of thing, and I don't know that there is one. So I'll avoid saying that there is, but the whole, impact resistant shingle thing where, insurance companies are telling people to go get impact resistant shingles and you get a reduction in your premiums.
Yep.
I'll say fully right now that I haven't done the math for probably 5 years, but I know 5 years ago, people that were reporting back to me saying this is how much I would save in premiums did not outweigh how much they're going to pay for the additional expense on the impact resistant shingle.
Not even close. I did the math several years ago, and it was like 6 years to pay back the difference for the premiums.
Yeah.
I'm like,
well, I think that when we were doing the math, it was even longer. It was almost up to the point where it was time to get a new roof anyway. The one person that was winning, like you're talking about this Fortified roofing, and I don't know a ton about the Fortified roofing. I've read a little bit about it. It's not something around here yet, but the only person that's winning is the insurance company through that. And so it kind of goes back to, a little bit of economics there where before you think whether you can do something, you should think whether you should do something, right?
Yeah.
And so you can fortify these roofs. And again, I don't want to use the term fortify in full connection to fortified roofing. I'm just saying you can build up a roof to a point where it'll last, 1,000 years, but to what cost? Like for what reason? I know that roofs that we tear off now, that when I get up on the roof, I can tell like this is a well-crafted roof, right? Somebody did a really good job putting this roof on. They knew what they were doing. They, the flashing was all there intact or whatever, but the roof's just old. It's 20 years old and it's got to be replaced. It's a wearable surface of a home. And when we tear that roof off and the decking is perfectly fine, there's no leaks anywhere, there's no damage there, but they didn't have fortified roofing. Like, is fortified roofing just making up for bad workmanship? Like, is it overcorrecting to a point where we're doing all these other things because it fixes, bad workmanship? Or if you
is doing that, I've interviewed one of our customers recently, and you're right to the point. The insurance company wins. The roofers are losing because it does take almost double the time to do the same 65 square. Like we could do 65 square all day long on a normal thing, one day. Tear off, install, perfectly clean, done. Now it takes a day and a half or 2 days to do the same roof. So you're doing half the work now, and you have to pay the state to be part of the Fortified roofing program. So like it generates leads, but your profitability is much less, and your crews also suffer because they do half the work. Because they have to, like, it really is. It's not great for the economic side of things.
No, it's not. In a macroeconomics, if you said, this wasn't equitable for everyone, the guys that got in there and exploited the weaknesses and jumped on every single roof and jumped back down and told everybody, yeah, you do have hail damage. Let's throw stuff at the wall and see if it sticks or whatever. They made out, but that was a very selfish business tactic. Like it wasn't equitable for everybody. And now some of us are going to have to pay, or all of us eventually, it'll even out economically, but we're all going to have to pay into it. It's just it was not equitable on both parts. And when you stray away from that, you'll eventually pay for it.
Yep. And just from a homeowner's perspective, the homeowner's getting a better roof, right? Well, the roofer can't charge double.
No.
Let's call it a $20,000 roof. They can't charge $40,000 for the same roof because they have to do 2 days worth of work. Because they'd normally be doing, I always looked at days. Today is Tuesday. We're recording on a Tuesday.
Duration's everything. Yep.
Time. You have one Tuesday. It's today, December 2nd, we're recording. We make X amount of dollars. I looked at my crew. How much money are those guys making every day? That's what I wanted. I thought about to Oscar, who was just a cleanup guy. I wanted to know. I knew how much he made, and if he's doing half the work, he's essentially screwed.
Yeah.
He's screwed because you can't pay him for 2 days.
No.
I can't pay every single guy on the crew for 2 days. He's screwed.
Yeah,
And so
it's a
the
big
homeowner, the same job, homeowner loses because they have to pay. I mean, they're probably going to pay 50 to 60% more. They're probably going to pay $30,000 for the same roof they would pay $20,000 for.
Yeah. Well, how do you stay competitive? I mean, and I'm almost honestly asking this, like in Georgia, you're saying like there's so many people that don't carry the license and all these other things, and maybe
there's no license in Georgia. There's no permits in Georgia.
Yeah.
In Texas is the same way. I think Georgia is probably worse than Texas. Everybody who has a no permit or no license state always says that their state's the worst. But I would just know Georgia. It's very difficult because it takes no capital to start a roofing business. If you got a truck and a ladder, you're there. You're done. You can start roofing tomorrow. And it's very difficult to get going. That's why branding is very important. We talk about branding again, like, and understanding the culture behind your business. There's ways to get around that, but it usually takes a lot of money. You got to build a really strong, well-known brand kind of off the rip. You can't just start it like I did 10, 12 years ago. You can't do that anymore. And really survive. Like, you just can't do it. It's hard. It's definitely hard to do.
Yeah. It's, again, you just got to do things right from the get-go and get a firm business running underneath of you before you try to do anything else. And I think that's really hard to do.
It is. Well, Adam, we've been talking for an hour.
Cool.
I appreciate you coming on, man. It's good to get to hear your story and get to hear your background. And we're here for you. ProLine team loves you. Anything you need, let us know. If you're watching Big Roofs Podcast, thanks for watching. Until next time, we'll see you later.
Awesome. Thanks, John.